It's the 11th day of the 11th month of the year, and we're headed into week 11 of the NFL season. And so, of course, we have 11 things or so to talk about. For instance, is the latest come from behind win for Chicago an official validation that Caleb Williams has arrived and his critics have left? Penei Sewell is considered to be the best right tackle in the NFL. But is Darnell Wright one-handedly working his way into the conversation? Is Olamide Zaccheaus dropping the ball in his bid to remain the team's number 3 receiver? If CJ Gardner-Johnson is the real deal at the slot, how will Dennis Allen shuffle his defensive backfield when Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson return? My name is Alyssa Barbieri. I'm filling in for the vacationing John Buffone, and this is Buffone 55.
Doug Buffone was a bear. He was a great LB. And when he went on the air, he said stuff without a scare.
This defense sucks. You are a professional team. Act like one, for God's sakes.
One of the greats. Buffone was a bear. He was a Chicago Bear. Now at the barroom for year 9, knowing winning is the bottom line. John Buffone continues the legacy. He's got Doug's pedigree.
If you look at this team and this quarterback and this coach, if it's not going to be now, when?
And John does it with 2 pros, Alyssa Barbieri and Danny Shimon. Buffone 55 years old Bear, covering all the team's affairs. Buffone 55 years old Bear, covering all the team's affairs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Buffone 55. Before we begin, I would like to wish a happy Veterans Day. And to all who have served and those who continue to serve, we honor you today and every day. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. And as I said earlier that John was vacationing, he did take some time to send us a video, and in typical Buffone style, the neck veins were popping.
The Chicago Bears are 6-3. Cardiac Caleb and the Bears get it done once again, defeating the Giants. And listen, I don't care. They're 6-3. They are alive in the playoff race. I don't care if it's not pretty. We are in November talking about playoff positioning. And let's take a look around the division. Green Bay looks lost offensively now. Minnesota has a struggling young quarterback, and Dan Campbell had to take over play calling responsibilities in Detroit, all while the Bears seem to be ascending. Look, we've seen defense win them games, we've seen special teams win them games, we've seen the rushing attack win them games, and we've seen Caleb win them games. As a whole, the Bears are improving as a team, and their quarterback is getting better every week. And you know something? I have to get out of this mentality where the Bears are losing and I just give up early. I know as Bears fans, we are programmed to just have no hope if they fall behind. And actually, as time was waning in the fourth quarter, I looked at one of my cousins and said, hey, if you want to get out of here early, I would understand. And no sooner did I say that, did the Bears come back and win the game. So we, as Bears fans, have to reprogram our minds a little bit because the Bears have shown that they can come back and they can win these games. And listen, I know years and years and years of watching them lose these types of games make it hard to change that mentality, but that's just something we have to learn to do in the year 2025. And you know what? I'm not upset about it. But you know what? I spent 3 days in Chicago. It was great. I went to Portillo's like I promised, and woo, it was delicious. We spent some time at the Navy Pier. We were down on Rush Street, grabbed a steak at Gibson's, which was phenomenal. My family down in Little Italy is the absolute best. They were incredible hosts. And you know what? Chicago is starting to feel like a second home to me. So thank you to my family. Thank you to the city of Chicago. Thank you to the Bears. Because of all of those things, I left the Windy City a very happy man. Let's keep it going. I'll see you next week. Bear down.
Thanks for that, John, and really happy that you did not leave that game early and miss that comeback. But now let me bring in Buffone 55, lead analyst and the owner and operator of Shimon Draft Scout on YouTube, Danny Shimon. Danny, seeing is believing, but still, can you believe that the Bears would be in the playoffs right now if the season had ended today?
Yeah, and thanks to the pitiful offensive showing by the Packers, they're actually not in the playoffs. They're actually the 6th seed in the playoffs. So a step off. They were the 7th seed, and then obviously they moved up there with the Packers loss. But great job running the show there, Alyssa, opening up the show. And I just want to say, with John comes back, I got a question. Was that his brother wearing? Is he wearing a Tyson Bagent number 17 jersey, or was that an Alshon Jeffrey 17 jersey? We got to find out what's going on here. Is John's family trying to start a quarterback controversy by wearing a Bagent jersey? We got to find out.
Ooh, I mean, we have a lot to talk about. The Bears are in the playoffs here. I mean, we don't have time for quarterback controversies.
No,
but with John out this week, I would like to welcome in our guest for tonight, who I'm super excited to have join us. He is the assistant editor over at Bears Wire, Brendan Shergood. Welcome, Brendan. And I have the same question for you. Are you surprised that the Bears are now in the playoff picture?
Well, first off, it's great to be on. Alyssa, you and I have worked together for so many years, and there's only a few times that we actually get to be on a podcast together. So this is a very fun day for me. It's great to talk with you, Danny, as well. I got to say right now at 6-3, I'm not too surprised because I went back, I did the homework. I looked back at what I wrote preseason as well as the offseason. I had these guys at 6-3 going into week 11, and I thought their opening schedule was going to be a little bit soft. So I figured they would be in prime playoff position now, but now is really where things get tough. The schedule gets a little bit harder. The division games start to come up. You obviously have to account for Green Bay. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder now. Minnesota, it's going to be tough to play at their home spot. So as of right now, I am not too surprised, but things can change. And I'm not going to, you know what? I don't want to put it out there, but I had them losing 4 in a row after this in my preseason predictions. So I pray that I was right now. I really hope I'm wrong because we have to keep these good times rolling because the Bears just keep finding ways to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. The anti-Flus squads that we've seen over the last few years.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I'll take these wins where even if they're ugly, who cares? You're finding ways to win when before they were finding ways to lose. And it's just a nice welcome relief. And I can't believe we're talking playoffs right now heading into week 11, because normally we're already focused on the offseason thinking about, draft positioning and all this. But I mean, I think obviously the addition of Ben Johnson and what he's done for this team and this morale, I think we'd all run through a wall for him at this point. And I thought we'd start the show off here with a little good, better, best in honor of Ben, which has become I look forward to this video every time that they're winning. So it kind of inspired me to do something similar with my game balls over at Bears Wire. So I kind of want to go around the horn and share our good, better, and best from Sunday's win. So let's count it back from our top 3 players of the game. I want you to start with good, going to better, and concluding with best. So I'm going to kick things off because I already had mine. So that I wrote after Sunday's game. But I was thinking, because there are a lot of contenders, I think, for my good, because I think we all pretty much have perhaps the same top 2 here. But I think Montez Sweat really stood out, and just, I think after a slow start and even last season, he's really finding his footing in Dennis Allen's defense. He had 1.5 sacks against the Giants. He's had 4.5 in the last 4 games, and it really feels like he's coming alive in this Dennis Allen defense. And for my better, I had CJ Gardner-Johnson. He's only been here for a couple of weeks, but his impact has been profound. And I think that this is one of the better moves that Ryan Poles has made. And we know that he's had some swings and misses there. So, he led the defense with 9 tackles, a couple tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, a forced fumble. What didn't he do in this game? And he has 3 sacks in the last 2 games. And of course, I think Caleb Williams, he's getting the best here for me. If you look at the stat line alone, which a lot of people will, and they'll use it to try to validate or justify whatever storyline that they want to tell with him. It doesn't tell the whole story. He did have those, he was hurt by the 6 drops. I'm looking at you, Zacchaeus, which was the most by a team in a single game this season. But, we saw him, he has that clutch gene that a lot of the great quarterbacks have and that we haven't really seen with Bears quarterbacks. And you look at his teammates, they're describing him as having ice in his veins, and he just knows how to turn it on. And it was really impressive to see him lead yet another fourth quarter comeback drive. So, Danny, I want to throw it over to you. Who were your good, better, and best from this game?
All right, so this is good. We're gonna have a little bit of a variety here. So, but I do like the Montez Sweat thing. I think he's gone 5.5 sacks, and it's kind of been under the radar. I think because of the overall performance of the defense. But that's a good get there for you, Alyssa. But for me, my good, I start off with Caleb Williams, right? Some might say, oh, good. I'm like, listen, his pocket presence was excellent in that game. He avoided about 3 or 4 sacks, just the way he spun out of pressure, got away. He's very hard to sack, and defenders are starting to find that out. And I think what I like about him now is not only is he getting out and trying to make plays on the football field, but now he's also, someone's gotten into him, whether it's Ben Johnson or whether it's someone else on the offense staff. So hey, you know what? Maybe not force it. If you see a big patch of grass, just use your legs and get the first down, and let's move on to the next play. So I like how he's doing there. And then also, Leslie mentioned the clutch gene. This kid, every time, even going back to last year, whenever he was put in these pressure situations, end of the game situations, he does a good job of bringing his team, at least putting him in position to score. So he gets my good. Better, and this is a collection. I put my better as the young pass catchers, right? Not this group, and this is for me is the future of this offense, along with Caleb Williams, and that's Rome Odunze, Colson Loveland, and Luther Burden III. These are going to be the leading the Bears in moving on in upcoming years in terms of their position guys out on the outside. All 3 had big time effect on the game. Obviously, Odunze, 86 receptions, the touchdown. Colson Loveland, he's starting to come on. We saw what he could do in Cincinnati. This game, he only had 4 receptions for 58 yards. But man, that 3rd and 10 catch where Caleb spins out of pressure, does one of those, Houdini throws, and Colson, that ball is behind him. He uses his fingertips to kind of bring that ball in. It shows you the strength he has in his hands and the type of ability he has in terms of extend away from his frame. That was a big play right there. That extends, as a 3rd and 10, extends that drive, and the Bears eventually score on that drive there as well. And Luther Burden, to me, this is a budding star in the making here, and the more opportunities it gets, and maybe Oz's drops will lead to more Burden opportunities, but that 27-yard play in the fourth quarter, he was a guy that every ball thrown his way, he makes the catch, and he's for a guy who's not a big bulking receiver, he likes to dish out some punishment. He will let the other cornerback know that he's there and he's there to make plays. I think those 3, those 3, that future there looks bright for the Bears in terms of the skill positions. And my best, guys, CJ Gardner-Johnson. I've been wanting the Bears to get this kid for a long, long time. And another, one of our loyal listeners, Bellissimo, if you're out there, Bellissimo, you can chime in. Him and I have been pounding the table for the Bears to somehow get CJ Gardner-Johnson. And they finally got him. And to be honest with you, the Bears would not have won this game on Sunday without him on the football field. Already he's got 3 sacks. He's already 3rd on the team in sacks in just 2 weeks, right? You talked about the forced fumble, right? You talked about in terms of, his innate ability to go out and make plays and be at the right place at the right time. And he brings this swagger to this team. He's a guy that talks, a big game, is brash, and he's out there, he's getting into, opponents' heads. And I think that is what this team needed. And he's got a defensive coordinator in Dennis Allen that believes in him and knows how to utilize him. And I think that's why we're seeing the best out of him. And yet only still 27 years old. So I think those are my 3 good, better, and bests.
I like those. So we have a nice diversity here. Brendan, I'm going to kick it over to you. Who are your good, better, and best?
Well, I was between two for good. So I'm going to give an honorable mention since I think you mentioned Montez Sweat having a big game. I'm going to give an honorable mention to Austin Booker. He really shined early in this game, especially those first few drives. He had two big plays early, 3 QB hits already. That's 4 on the season, which matches what he had in 17 games during his rookie season. So I thought he played well. But I'm going to give my good to somebody who isn't getting a whole lot of credit, and that's DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift had 13 carries, 80 yards. There were a few big runs for one of them was a 4th down conversion, just continuing to run hard, especially a week after he was injured coming back in. People didn't really know what to expect with him and Kyle Monangai, but I thought DeAndre Swift was kind of that, maybe not an unsung hero, but he played a big role in keeping drives alive, especially early on in the pass game as well. So a lot of people heaping on praise of Caleb Williams, the offensive line, but I want to make sure that DeAndre Swift gets his flowers because I thought he had a pretty good game. There's really only, I'd say, one negative run that he had, and I don't think that was even his fault. It was just a poor play design on that 3rd down loss. I think that was early in the game in the first half. My better, I'm going to kind of, piggyback off what Danny said with the young pass catchers. I'm going the tight end specifically. So Colson Loveland, everybody knows about the receiving catches that he had, especially late. He might have the best hands on the team right now. How about his blocking? Mm-hmm. I mean, a rookie tight end like that and somebody who was really just thought of as a receiving threat. So many times in the run game, I'm seeing him flash across the screen, taking guys out of the running lanes for Monangai or Swift, and just being an active participant and doing so well so early. That's really hard for a rookie tight end to do. And then Cole Kmet, another guy who I don't think is getting enough credit for the blocks that he made, lining up as a fullback, doing his job, even though he's not the primary pass catcher at the position anymore. He was the key to that Monangai touchdown early in the first half. I just saw both of those guys. I was very impressed with, not only with the receiving hands, but I keep saying receiving hands, but the different catches that they had, but as well as the blocking. And CJ Gardner-Johnson or Caleb Williams for the best. I got to go Caleb Williams just for pretty much putting the team on his freaking back. I mean, you talk about a guy who was let down by his receivers. At times, the offensive line did fail, and he had to evade pressure. And this wasn't even him like holding the ball too long. There were free rushers coming, and somehow, some way, with the combination of strength and speed, he was able to evade sacks, keep plays alive, and then just rifle balls like pretty accurately. And then just, calling his own number with multiple big runs and having enough speed to get past Brian Burns, get past linebackers. I am just continuing to be impressed by what this guy can do, and really not getting angry, not getting mad if some guys don't do their job, and just knowing that he is in full control. And when's the last time we can actually look at a Bears quarterback and say, well, if he is he can get it done by himself? I mean, I looked back remember 3 years ago, 2022, Justin Fields. It was a fun ride, but he always, for one reason or another, the Bears fell and he wasn't able to elevate them to success. Now you have a quarterback with that clutch gene, and you don't have to worry about guys letting him down. He is going to find a way to get it done. So just definitely the best. I love the Iceman nickname that he's got because it is very fitting.
Absolutely. I mean, just listening to all of the names that we share between the three of us, I mean, I think it just speaks to how this team is winning as one. It's not just one person. I think Ben really has this team bought in. I think that they're going to continue to fight, and we've seen that in how they continue to bounce back in the fourth quarter, even when it is ugly. And before we move on, I want to give a quick shout out to Swanky for his donation. Thank you, Swanky. I truly believe Caleb Williams has found his rhythm in a pass-heavy offense game plan. Yes. And Calvin as well. Thank you so much for your donation. Hey, it's great when the Bears are winning and when the Packers are losing. So, hey. But we are going to move on. And we were talking a little bit about Ben Johnson, and he came under some criticism for his coaching against the Giants. You could argue that this was perhaps his worst game with the Bears so far, but he's also been criticized for not calling enough running plays. And, Brendan, you were talking about DeAndre Swift and what he did with his 13 carries. When going into this game, this was a Giants defense that was one of the worst run defenses in the league. And Chicago has two capable running backs in Swift and Kyle Monangai. So, Danny, where do you stand on that argument? Are you upset with Ben for not calling more running plays against the Giants?
Yes, I am, but to call it his worst game so far, I think that's a bit of a stretch. To me, I still that Detroit game in second week 2 was really a bad, not because of the final score, but just I think everything else was all about that was bad. But for me with Ben Johnson this week, yeah, and again, everything kind of pertain to just sticking with the run, especially when you bounce it to the outside. You saw DeAndre Swift on a 4th and 2 lower shoulder run over defenders and get that first down. So they were having some success, and even that first drive with Kyle Monangai getting into the end zone, being pushed by his offensive linemen and teammates. I said just kind of bury the Giants because they have that elite pass rush with those 4 first-round picks against their defensive front. And I think just bullying them was the way to go, especially with the weather. I think everything called for it. They were having some moderate success. And there were times with Caleb, whether it was an incomplete pass or just his receivers flat out dropping the ball, it was just stalling drives. It was killing drives. And I just thought, stick with the run a little bit more. But kind of listen to Ben Johnson after the game. He talks about he's got these, scripts or these plays in designed for certain players. And I think he's fallen to the thing where a little bit to the trap where he's got so many mouths to feed that he wants to make sure he keeps everyone happy. And I think that's something hopefully he's not falling into. Hopefully I'm totally wrong about that. But it just seems like he's got, I got to get, 3 plays designed where Burden's the number 1 target or 7 where, Rome is and so on and so forth. So I hope that's not the way it goes. But we'll see how this rest of the season plays. But yeah, I definitely wanted to see him kind of stick with the run a little bit more.
Absolutely. And, something we haven't been talking about a lot this season is the offensive line. And usually that's a pretty good indication that they're doing well. In Sundays when the offensive line didn't allow a sack for the second in a game for the second time this season. Although, Brendan, as you mentioned, Caleb Williams' escape Houdini act certainly helped. So I was wondering, where do you think, Brendan, that the offensive line is hitting its stride?
Definitely. I think they have been. I mean, it's never going to be perfect. And maybe we're just looking at this with Bears colored glasses because of the fact that the last few years we've seen guys fall into Caleb or Justin, whoever's lap within like 2 seconds, less than that. And so when you actually have time, you can see a quarterback and, have room to operate. So look, the best part is they have chemistry and consistency because early on, you had the issues with Braxton Jones. He was hurt. He was coming out. They had to swap guys around. Darnell Wright gets hurt. He was out for the Raiders game. And so for the last, 4 or 5 games, you've had the same starting 5 lineup. And I don't know, guys, I can't remember the last time we've had that long of a stretch where the Bears haven't had to shuffle guys around for whether it's poor performance or whether it's injury. So they and Ben Johnson and Dan Rochar, the coaching staff, knows now who does what well. I mean, we all know that Theo Benedette is a much better run blocker than a pass blocker. And knowing that, you can help him out a little bit in certain instances. Joe Thuney, opposite. He's a great pass blocker, not as good run blocker. So you can work your advantages. You can figure out where you need help or where you can maximize efforts there. And I mean, but just in general, I think you're seeing guys just playing with more of an edge. I mean, the biggest example is Darnell Wright with how he's throwing guys around, and it feels like he's playing with a mean streak that we have never seen before from him. He's kind of reminds us of that gentle giant. And over the last 2 weeks, he's driving Shamar Stewart into the ground. He's throwing Brian Burns and Tyler Nubin just out of the frame in these all 22 clips. So you're seeing a mix of consistency and gelling while also these guys are starting to play with that mean streak of knowing that they can bully guys around. And that goes back to coaching with the mentality that Ben Johnson instills in this team. Like he wants these guys to be mean MFers. And I'd say they're definitely doing that for the most part.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Darnell Wright specifically, who, I think is one of the most underrated right tackles in the NFL. And, Danny, I had a question for you. I was wondering, do you think that Wright is on his way to becoming the league's best right tackle? And I believe you have a scouting report for us as well.
First of all, when I saw that question in the rundown, I'm like, either Aldo's trying to get funny with me or he's trying to trigger me. One of the other two. So, guys, Darnell Wright is playing better. Darnell Wright, from what he's had, previous season. Heck, even week 2, I was saying, he's trending towards being a bust and then being a damn good right tackle. But the one thing with Darnell Wright, and that's something that I think even Ben Johnson has touched on, is he's playing better than what he was playing before. But it's the consistency, right? Once he gets consistent, I think that's where we'll see the best of Darnell Wright. But I don't take that question seriously. I'm sorry, Alyssa, in terms of is he better than is he an all-pro right tackle, or is he better than Penei Sewell? There are some inconsistencies in his game. Here, I'll show you a couple clips here. First of all, let's go on his first play. Although if you have it racked up, all right, this is the play where he's taken on. Obviously, Brian Burns leads the NFL in sacks with 11. Does a good job of getting to a set spot, right? Like that right there. But then, gets in the way of Brian Burns, obstructs his way to the quarterback, eventually, loses him. But if we go back, and this is where I grade him, right? Again, set spot, good. But look at his form, his technique, feet are all over the place. His hands are late. He doesn't punch. He doesn't control Brian Burns, who we already seen him being able to manhandle him because of his strength, right? And that's where he can take some of these young guys, or these lighter edge rushers, say, and just manhandle them. And again, look, he's holding them, he's hugging them. Surprising to get called for holding there. So that's all technique for me. And this is where the inconsistencies come in. If he can clean that part of his game up and become more consistent in terms of, getting in balance, getting square to the defender, locking out, using your hands, and using your force to get a grip on them, then we'll see Darnell Wright become a Pro Bowl caliber type of player. Right now, his strength is his run blocking, and Brendan alluded to it in terms of the way he can use his power and bury defenders. And I think that's where actually both of the Bears tackles for me are better run blockers than they are pass blockers right now, right? So I think this is where I think Darnell Wright has a way to go. Next clip here, we're gonna show this is the one that obviously goes viral here on the internet, where he just buries Brian Burns. So. But again, there's some good things here, okay, and some bad things here, right? Good things, again, gets out of his stance, gets to a set spot, cuts off the angle of a speed rusher like Brian Burns. So that shows you some of the athletic ability. And then catches Burns in a spin move, and then just uses his power to be able to kind of bury him and throw him into the ground. But look at him. He's squared. His shoulders are squared to the pass rusher. They're a little bit better form. Okay, gets out there, again, meets him and uses his strength. Now, if he could just get his hands to be able to strike and keep the defender away from his frame, not allow him to get into his body, I think you'll see him get more and more success moving forward, right? So this is the play where Colson Love makes that great catch. But again, some of the positives here we see in Darnell Wright's game, and some of the negatives in the same damn play. So this is where, again, consistency. This next play here is for me is a huge egregious mishap or misplay by Darnell Wright. And again, this is something that I think he can get better at. This is where he elevates to the next level. His guy, his second level linebacker, was number 33, which is Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. What he does is he actually totally whiffs or even misses that second level block. By him missing that block, that allows Fowles to take a great angle to DeAndre Swift, okay, and then make the tackle. So not only does he miss, but because he missed, now Swift has to bounce that run farther out to the outside, negating Jonah Jackson's pulling here, because Jonah Jackson has Nubin trapped to the outside, and then DJ Moore comes up and gets his guy. So they've created a lane here, a seam here, a patch of grass for DeAndre Swift. If he hits it to where he was supposed to hit it, if Darnell Wright has gotten his guy, that's a big play. Could be a touchdown, it could be a long run, who knows? But to me, this is where his whiff and his miss is things where he has to clean up in his game. Now, is he getting better? Is he improving? Yes. But is he an all-pro, or is he there yet? Not yet. And he's got to get to his inconsistencies. He's got to clean this up. And Ben Johnson has touched on it. And I think if he does that, when he does that, I think then you'll see a guy eventually that could be a Pro Bowl kind of player.
Yeah, I agree. He's not quite all pro status there, but when so much of the conversation for years has been, the Bears, they should have drafted Jalen Carter. Was that the right decision with Darnell Wright? And I think that he's continuing to show that perhaps this was the right decision. You have your right tackle, hopefully, of the future. Now you got to go out and find your left tackle, but. Kind of shifting gears to the defense, because one of the Bears' cornerstone defenders on defense, Kyler Gordon, is currently on injured reserve. And I think, it's only been 2 weeks, but one of the smartest moves that Ryan Poles has made this year is signing CJ Gardner-Johnson to shore up the slot. So while Gordon is still on IR and he is eligible to return in week 12 against the Steelers, we'll see if he does return that sooner, or if he takes a little longer. I think the question becomes, how does Gardner-Johnson factor into the equation once Gordon returns? Do they kick Gordon outside and let Gardner-Johnson continue playing nickel? Danny, I'm curious, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, Kyle Gordon, when he was drafted, I always scouted him as a guy that could be best suited on the outside. Now he's made a good, in terms of recovery, or in terms of learning that inside slot corner position, and has really become, pretty good at it. The only problem is he's got to stay healthy. But once he does come back, I think this gives Dennis Allen another weapon to utilize in that defensive secondary. And again, these guys are both interchangeable, right? The only thing is for me, Gardner-Johnson cannot play on the outside. He's an inside guy. He's either a slot nickel corner, or he's a safety. Now you could utilize him once Gordon comes back. You can kick Gordon to the outside at corner, right? We've seen Tyreek Stevenson and Nashawn Wright both have their struggles on the outside. So you can put Gordon out there. You could also, if you want to keep Gordon as a nickel corner, you can utilize CJ Gardner-Johnson as a third safety. You can utilize him different ways here, either at the line of scrimmage, as we'll see in some of the clips I have here. He's got good innate skills, and he knows how to kind of maneuver around big bodies near or at the line of scrimmage, and he's a terrific blitzer. So there's multiple different ways, but you do not take CJ Gardner-Johnson off the football field once Kyler Gordon comes. You just add another playmaker, and just imagine the blitzing schemes and the ideas that Dennis Allen has, because now you can blitz Kyler Gordon from a corner position. You can blitz, CJ Gardner-Johnson from a nickel position. You can blitz from all different kinds of angles. You can play stunts and games with defensive line and all that stuff. So I'm just seeing now Dennis Allen sitting there salivating, waiting to get TJ Edwards back, waiting to get Kyler Gordon back, and hopefully one day Jalen Johnson back. And then we're going to see this guy kind of just mix and match and really design some stuff that's going to really excite the Bears fans.
Yeah, and I believe, Danny, that you did have a scouting report that you wanted to
I just wanted to show, again, I'm a big fan of CJ Gardner-Johnson. The fact that he was cut, by the Texans and then by the Ravens, it really kind of, threw me off. I'm like, there's something going on that I'm not aware of. But obviously, Dennis Allen, I think, went to bat for him. Dennis Allen had him in New Orleans. Dennis Allen has a plan in terms of how to utilize him. This first play, he had 2 sacks in the game against the Giants. And this first play here, the Bears, cover up, show they're coming out in cover 2. Dart thinks it's a zone coverage. All of a sudden they rotate down. The Brisker rotates down. It's a cover 1, and because Dart is kind of confused by that, post snap and see what the defense is doing. CJ Gardner-Johnson uses his ability to come in, and his innate ability to kind of time that snap count and his closing burst and speed to be able to come in and make the sack here on Dart. If Dart is not confused by some of what Dennis Allen's doing in terms of post snap, the tight end Bellinger's wide open in the flat. No one's around him. That could have been an easy release valve there for him. That's a big gainer for the Giants. But because of that, what Dennis Allen was doing, kind of playing games with Dart, pre-snap and then post-snap, then Gardner-Johnson, with his innate ability to time up his the snap count and then use his speed to close, gets that sack there. So that was that first sack. I think we can go on to the second play there if we have it here all queued up. This is the play where, again, the only turnover the Bears had was this play here where Dart fumbles the ball. Not only does he fumble the ball, but he also gets this concussion and he's out of the game. Because I think if Jackson Dart, if he stays in the game, the way he was playing, he was moving the ball up and down using his legs. The Bears were having some trouble stopping him, right? So again, CJ Gardner-Johnson is always around the football. Just the innate ability to be a pest. Right. And whether it's, talking smack, here he shoulder hits Dart, knocks that ball out. The ball pumps up in the air. Dart's trying to recover it. And this is where the Bears then, tackle him, hits his head, gets a concussion, get the forced fumble. And we know that this Bears defense gives up yards by the chunks, but they live and die by the turnover. And this is the only turnover in the game. And I think if this turnover doesn't happen, this really switches momentum. Again, you lose Dart for the Giants. The ball's turned over. They're in a red zone here, so they're probably going to get more points here if this doesn't happen. But again, it's CJ Gardner-Johnson making things happen, and this is what he does when he's on the football field. This is what he's done his entire career with the Saints, the Houston, the Eagles, Lions, so on and so forth. So that's the second play. But again, just being in the right place at the right time. Now, this third clip I have here, again, just showing how you could utilize him, CJ Gardner-Johnson, even with Kyler Gordon back. You line them up here. The Bears are showing that they're bringing 7 guys, pretty much all out blitz. They bring back only 6, drop back Noah Sewell. But again, Johnson's ability, his first step quickness, his ability to go get past the offensive lineman, and his closing burst and speed to track down the quarterback, and then he's a sure tackler. Provides you an extra guy that can you utilize to help boost your pass rush. So I think this is another example where CJ gives you that versatility where you want to line up safety, nickel, or just as an extra defender in that box. He gives you the versatility, especially when Kyler Gordon and TJ Edwards come back, and hopefully Jalen Johnson comes back.
Yeah, and Brendan, CJ Gardner-Johnson's only been here for a couple of weeks, but what have you seen from him that's impressed you most in the short time that he's been in Chicago?
I see a willing participant. I mean, look, I have to eat crow because as soon as it was announced that CJ Gardner-Johnson was signing with Chicago, I did not feel the same way that Danny did. I was very nervous, and I called him a ticking time bomb. Thankfully, he has not handed me a written letter like he did to a certain 670 The Score host about just how he was only going to last a few weeks. But there's no denying that he can play, and he obviously fit Dennis Allen's system. I think Danny did a great job of kind of highlighting just his strengths as a downfield tackler, has a nose for the ball. But the way that you can use him going forward is I just think when Kyler Gordon returns, you have to move him to the outside because Nahshon Wright is an absolute liability. Even when he gets his hands on the ball, he can't even hold on to it when he actually has a chance to come away with the turnover. Kyler Gordon has said he's wanted to play the outside more, even though he's been on the inside. Dennis Allen has talked about the versatility being key. And look, if TJ Edwards is going to be gone or at least out for a significant period of time, you can play a lot more dime package and have him be that pseudo linebacker. I think that's probably going to be your best case because Noah Sewell he ain't it right now. I'd almost feel more comfortable with that to see if that gives the defense a little bit of a spark. So I am still kind of waiting for the inevitable blow-up moment, whether that is on another player on a different team or hopefully not within the Bears locker room. But as of now, I mean, he's most likely going to stay throughout the end of the year. He's already looking like one of the best pickups, not only for the Bears, but across the entire NFL in terms of in season. So I'm just interested to see how that evolves once the Bears start getting some pieces back, because I think Danny laid it out perfectly. You can move them in a bunch of different spots, maybe even, I don't know, not bench Jaquan Brisker, but, rotate him a little bit more because Brisker just hasn't necessarily made those game-breaking plays that you would have liked to see overall. He had one on Sunday, but I don't know. There's a lot of different options. It's exciting to think about, especially for a struggling unit that could use a little bit of a pick-me-up.
And the other positive about moving Gordon to the outside, a lot of injuries, a lot of, times, he's been roughed up here, has had trouble staying on the field, Kyler Gordon, that is. When you play nickel, you're closer to the line of scrimmage. You're closer to more of the big bodies. You're closer to more of that contact, right? You got to be a physical player. Maybe kicking him onto the outside where he's, more so one-on-one with a receiver on the outside. You do get some action there, but not as much as when you're a nickel. So I think that could be a positive, possibly maybe kicking him to the outside, maybe keep him healthier a little bit longer. And now you have a guy like CJ Gardner-Johnson, who's a natural there at or near that line of scrimmage, I think, take a spot. So I think it'd be a perfect fit there by kicking Kyler to the outside and keeping CJ inside.
Yeah, and with this tough stretch coming up here, hopefully they're going to start getting some guys back. Kyler, we'll see when Jalen Johnson, is able to come back. He posted something on Instagram that indicated that maybe he's going to come back sooner than many of us are thinking. But kind of just focusing on the Bears defense as a whole, they've been great at taking the ball away and stopping teams on third down, but they haven't been great at much else. And when you look at it, they're ranked among the bottom of the league in most defensive metrics. Why they did make some plays in this game and they held the Giants to just 20 points and allowed Caleb Williams that fourth quarter comeback. They did struggle against rookie Jackson Dart, who was making them pay with his arm and his legs. And you do wonder if he had not exited that game with a concussion, would the Bears have won? And Brendan, you made a good point of that in your takeaways today over at Bears Wire. When you're mentioning that you don't think the Bears would have won if he was still in there. And then kind of looking ahead to the rest of the schedule coming up here starting on Sunday against the Vikings, there are still some concerns on this defense. So Brendan, when you look at this Dennis Allen defense, what's your biggest concern right now?
It feels like a cop-out, but it just feels like he doesn't have the horses to do what he wants right now, in part due to injuries, in part due to just sort of the resources allocated. I mean, Ben Johnson talked about it a few times during his post-game press conferences. With Shamar Turner going out, they liked him on the outside. They were able to do a little bit more there. Dio Dangbo, same thing. They wanted to move him inside, and they thought, okay, bringing Austin Booker back, they could really have a nice, unique mix of pass rushers. May not have been like the greatest group that we've ever seen, but would have been more effective. And just with guys going in and out of the lineup, it feels like he's not properly able to do what he wants to do in terms of like bringing the extra pressure, because then you're leaving so many different liabilities in a secondary that's been decimated, a linebacker group that doesn't have one of its key leaders in TJ Edwards, who also plays the run well. And he's making some good adjustments, but I think looking back, we can use the Giants specifically as an example. I mean, Brian Daboll had a much better game plan in terms of getting Jackson Dart out and on the run. They could not stop it to keep a mobile quarterback. They haven't faced one in a while. I mean, when you consider you had Joe Flacco the previous week, he's able to carve you up. Then you have Jackson Dart. He's able to get things done in multiple different ways. So you have to wonder, Kevin, if I'm Kevin O'Connell, okay, how can I utilize that with JJ McCarthy, who admittedly has not been as good as either player, with Flacco and Dart, but how can you utilize that and maybe get him on the move and create some different mismatches? So I think his scheme overall can work well in terms of the aggressiveness, and I love the added pressure that they bring, but just that leaves a bunch of different holes on the back end. And if you can move things around and create those mismatches, then you're going to get beat deep. And just too many times we saw those third down conversions against the Giants that put the offense in prime position to score. So again, it feels like a cop out, but I would love to see what this unit looks like with a fully healthy defense. And I know you guys are optimistic about Jalen Johnson. I personally am not, but I would love to see it because, I really want to see what he can do with all of his horses back.
Yeah, Brendan, I agree with you. I'm sorry, Alyssa. I agree with you. It's not a cop out. You're right. You're absolutely right. He doesn't have the horses that he needs right now to run his defense, and he's making chicken soup out of chicken crap. To be honest with you, right now, because he doesn't have the guys up front. I think this offseason we're going to see an influx of defensive linemen, the kind of defensive linemen that he wants, that Dennis Allen wants, and the corners have really not been able to do what he wants. He wants corners that are physical, press at the line of scrimmage to disrupt the route, the timing of the receivers and the quarterback. Nashawn Wright and Tyreek Stevens, while both have had their moments, right, but they've struggled mightily, and in getting, jamming receivers, rerouting receivers at the line of scrimmage, being physical at the line of scrimmage is not their strength. And I think you'll see a corner next year. You'll see Jalen Johnson out there hopefully, and you're going to see them go get a corner, whether it's in the draft or whether it's a high price free agent, a guy that can be physical at the line of scrimmage, bump and be reroute these receivers at the line of scrimmage, disrupt the timing of the offense, allow those stunts in games that a defensive linemen play up front to get to the quarterback and provide pressure. And again, utilizing guys like a C.J. Gardner or a Kyler Gordon and all that stuff. So that's why, in the meantime, like I said, he has to do what he can with what he has, right? So I think that's why Gordon comes back, kick him to the outside. He's a little bit bigger, could be a little more physical, maybe up front, maybe can bump and disrupt some timing there with the receivers. And now let your guys like a Booker and some of the other young guys play those stunts and loops, and maybe use guys like Gardner Johnson and Tremaine Edmonds, that I know we'll talk about here in the future, in terms of getting there to provide pressure. But yeah, look for a big influx of defensive players this offseason for the Bears.
Yeah, no, you both made really good points. Like, we still haven't seen this Dennis Allen defense in full effect because of the injuries, and he doesn't have everybody available to him, specifically in the secondary there. But perhaps he might have one in the linebacker. One of the pleasant surprises on defense this season is Tremaine Edmonds, who has been arguably the biggest winner since Dennis Allen has arrived in Chicago. And Edmonds has 1 year left on his 4-year, $72 million deal that he signed back in 2023. So that begs the question, is Edmonds earning himself a contract extension? Brendan, let's start with you.
That's a good question. I was already kicking around the idea of like who could get extended. I wrote about Kevin Byard a couple of weeks ago because of his leadership. I think that it's definitely a possibility. And my God, I cannot believe Matt Eberflus was in this town for 2 years with Tremaine Edmonds, and he insisted on keeping him at middle linebacker. Dennis Allen comes in and says, nope, we are moving you to the outside because that's where you're going to play better. You are much better athletically. And we think that TJ Edwards has the better instincts to kind of run the defense. And sure enough, I mean, it's worked out so much better. I think having Tremaine Edmonds be in that more react instead of read situation has just been a godsend for everybody. He's still so young. He has had a few injury concerns previously. He's been okay this year. I guess I could be talked into doing like a TJ Edwards type deal where you add on like a couple years and, you know, maybe increase the pay a little bit. But I also wouldn't be mad if you kind of run this into next year as well and see if this is sustainable. Because now you're putting even more resources into the linebacker position. And I know they're playing well, but I mean, the Bears are going to be cash strapped. And it's when you have different holes on the defensive line, you have safeties that you're going to have to figure out. Again, I'd like to remind people the Bears do not have a safety on the roster going into 2026. They have to bring in different people. They have to re-sign people. Same thing with cornerback, as Danny talked about. So I guess I'm not totally in a rush to do it. I think it's on the table, but let's see how the rest of the season goes, and let's see how the cash kind of, you know, figures out, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Danny, if you put in your GM hat on right now, are you making the deal?
All right, let's go with the good and the bad. The good, Tremaine Edmonds has played better this year than he has played maybe going back to Buffalo, his rookie year, first couple seasons in the league. He was just a shell of himself under Eberflus, okay? And this was Eberflus's big guy, right? And Eberflus had no idea how to utilize him. Dennis Allen comes in and he revitalizes Tremaine Edmonds' career here in Chicago. And I've said this multiple times, and I'm one of Edmonds' biggest critics coming into the season. And I think he was on my list of potential guys that could have been cut in training camp. But he's 80 tackles so far. He's got a sack, 4 interceptions. He is much more aggressive. And that move to weak side linebacker allows him more freedom to be able to now come downhill. He's aggressive in his run fits, fitting those gaps and being more of a presence at the line of scrimmage. You know, you see him being used more as a blitzer now. You know, he was the one who got at Russell Wilson and deflected that ball at the end of that last play for the Giants in terms of the offense on Sunday. So, you know, using him in multiple different ways, and then also you're still using him to get back there and you know, utilizing his size and his length to be a disruptor in a passing game and in coverage. He already has 4 interceptions. So I think Tremaine Edmonds' career has really been revitalized because of Dennis Allen, because he has an idea on how to use players, how to put players in a position to succeed. Now, pump the brakes on the contract extension. That's not something that I would do. I'm with Brandon. Let's let him go into his walk year, his free agent year, and let's see what he does there as well. So he definitely has earned the right to come back next year and compete for a spot, but I'm not giving him a contract extension. In terms of the defense, in terms of us, some of the cap strap stuff, yeah, Brandon, you hit on the head. I think they only have about $2 million in cap space at the moment. But but there's going to be some guys that are going to be let go, and two names to keep an eye on. I believe will not be on this team next year. One or maybe both, DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. I think both those guys have big cap numbers. I think the Bears can move on from those guys, veteran guys, have young guys already in place to replace them, and use some of that cap savings to either get influx on defensive players, and then also then in terms of offense, maybe find out left tackle in the draft or something like that. We'll see what happens there. But I think some of these veterans are going to be let go, and I think a lot of those cap savings will be put into the defense.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I mean, I think I would like to see more than 9 games of, Tremaine Edmonds being this version of Tremaine Edmonds before I'm signing him to a multi-year deal. And also a TJ Edwards deal. I feel like I don't see Tremaine maybe signing a deal quite like that. He might want a little bit more money, and you go into the salary cap issues, which you mentioned. So I could definitely see them moving on from him, but we'll see. But let's go ahead and shift our focus to Sunday's game against the Vikings, where we have a rematch from a week 1 divisional matchup that started well for Chicago, but didn't end well. They blew an 11-point fourth quarter lead and wound up losing 27-24. And it's their only loss in a 1-score game this season, as they are 4-1. So maybe that kind of woke them up a little bit. But we're going to kind of start with the quarterback, because the Bears are going to face J.J. McCarthy for the second time this season, where he last led the Vikings to that fourth quarter comeback in week 1, where he threw 3 touchdowns in the final quarter of play. McCarthy suffered a high ankle sprain the following week, and he missed 6 weeks before returning to lead the Vikings to an upset win over the Lions in week 9. So, Danny, what have you seen from JJ since he made his return to the lineup?
He's being nursed back into play here by Kevin O'Connell, a great offensive mind, a quarterback whisperer, if you will. And I think Kevin O'Connell let JJ kind of take those 3 or 4 weeks off and just kind of regroup. And then now he's kind of trying to build him back up again. And I think he's not asking him to do too much, right? They're relying a little bit more on his athleticism, letting him use his feet, get out of the pocket, use his legs, get some first downs. Again, those quarterback runs, when you have everyone accounted for on defense, and then the quarterback is able to get out and get a first down, that's a backbreaker for a defense, and that just it eventually wears on you as a defender. So I think that's where they're going to utilize him. They're not asking him to do too much, right? They have those 2 big guys on the outside, and Justin Jefferson, obviously, and Jordan Addison. So I think that's something where the Bears have to be cognizant of in terms of those guys, and we know the Bears corner issues right now. So. But I think they're going to kind of slowly work him back, and they're not giving him anything crazy to do. I think when they've asked him to help them win the game, I think that's when they've kind of gotten themselves in trouble. So I would foresee a safe, a game plan where a lot of run, a lot of play action, a lot of under center stuff, and utilizing some of his, his athletic ability with his feet, and obviously, getting Justin Jefferson matched up against some of those Bears defenders. I think that's how they're going to go ahead and utilize or try and attack the Bears this coming Sunday.
And Brendan, when you look at this Vikings offense as a whole, starting with the run game, they rank 24th. They're averaging just over 100 yards per game with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. And then on the flip side, their passing game is also near the bottom of the league, averaging less than 200 passing yards per game. But they do have Justin Jefferson. And we've seen what opposing quarterbacks, and especially going back to the Cincinnati Bengals game, what a great wide receiver can do against this injury-battled secondary. So which part of this Vikings offense scares you the most heading into Sunday's game?
I guess it would be Justin Jefferson, but right now, I mean, I don't know. I'm not all that scared of their offense, to be honest. I mean, look, I feel like Aaron Jones has lost a bit of a step. He has been injured, but he just doesn't have the same explosiveness, in my opinion. They don't really have that good dynamic with Jordan Mason either. And I don't know. I just look back at what was going on last week with the Ravens in a 1-score game. You're having JJ McCarthy throw 42 times. And I mean, for a guy who's still kind of coming back, I know, Danny, when you're talking about, nursing him back, like that's not the way to do it, to have him throw for that many times and to really just let the Ravens tee off on him. I guess I am concerned with maybe the familiarity with Kevin O'Connell being able to scheme up different opportunities against Dennis Allen. I mean, this is going to be a big test for the Bears because for this staff, this is the first time we get a repeat game. So I'm curious to see how both sides sort of handle this when it comes to not only Ben Johnson attacking Brian Flores' defense, but also what Kevin O'Connell will do against Dennis Allen. And after seeing what they were able to do for those first 3 quarters, they weren't able to get much going. And then they found a spark in that 4th quarter. So JJ doesn't scare me. The running game doesn't scare me. Justin Jefferson kind of scares me, although he hasn't necessarily been the same type of player. There's just a disconnect between them. I'd say the biggest thing that scares me is Kevin O'Connell. And I know some Vikings fans might disagree with me because if you read social media the last few days, everybody wants to just be a coach killer. Nobody believes in either Kevin O'Connell or Matt LaFleur, which is hilarious because I think both guys are very good at what they do. But that's kind of, I think, what scares me the most. I think he's a great mind, and I think he's going to find a way to maybe utilize Dennis Allen's aggressiveness against him and create maybe some of those moving pockets and, crossers that can beat the cornerbacks that we know the Bears don't have.
And then that's a good point, though, Brendan, because what happened was they were behind on the Ravens, and now they had to force JJ to throw the ball. And that's what I was talking about. If you rely on him to win you the game, that's when they fall in and they get into trouble. That's where JJ gets himself in trouble. So that's the thing here is if the Bears can corral. I mean, I just go back, and I know these guys don't compare to Chase and Higgins, but that tandem of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, I mean, they're scary in their own rights, right? And the Bears had no answer. I was there in Cincinnati. I saw there was no answer for Chase and Higgins. So the way this defense is right now, the Bears defense, if you don't create a turnover, they're not going to win. They can't stop anybody, right? So if they want a turnover battle, if they can get 2, 3, 4 turnovers, the more turnovers, the better. That's when the Bears can go ahead then and attack and then get on top. If the Bears get on top, now you're playing into the hands of Dennis Allen and the defensive staff. And I think that's where the Vikings get in trouble. But if the Vikings get out to a head start, And that's where I'm going to start getting a little bit more nervous in terms of as a Bear. But I have no issues. I think Ben Johnson, this offense, can score on this Vikings defense. Flores scares a lot of people, but he hasn't scared me. Now, the only thing I do caution the Bears in the interior of that defense, or those three down defensive linemen between Jalen Redmond and Jonathan Allen, and there's another player I'm forgetting his name, but Javon Hargrave. Those three have 9 sacks combined, between them. So that's where the interior of the Bears offensive line is going to have to be stout and firm to keep those guys out of Caleb's face, allow Caleb a nice secure pocket, because those outside guys, they'll bring pressure, but as you've seen Caleb, he's got the ability to step up now, maybe escape, lose some pressure, and make plays with his legs. So that if they can control that interior of the defensive line, I think the Bears can be able to score some points on this Minnesota Vikings defense.
Yeah, like you said, Danny, if the Bears can score and get an early lead and force JJ to beat them, that's kind of playing right into, I think, the Bears defense's hands. They only had 1 turnover, I believe, in that week 1 game, but usually when they get a takeaway, we've seen after that, they kind of keep building after that. So we'll see if they can do that. But I want to we talked about, JJ and the passing and the offense, but and Minnesota's defense, but let's talk about the run defense specifically, which is allowing 125.6 yards per game. Meanwhile, you have Chicago averaging 147.3 rushing yards per game, which is the second best in the NFL. So, Danny, do you think that the Vikings match up well against this Bears run game?
Yeah, I mean, the Bears, what they've done after the bye in terms of, they're a running team now. Offensively, they're a running team. They have to rely on that running game. They can't get too happy with. And I touched on it earlier. Right, something where I was a little perturbed with Ben Johnson with the Giants game is I feel like he went away from the run game a bit too soon. I know he wants to run the ball. I know he believes in running the ball. I know he believes in sending everything off the play action. So just pound the rock. Now that you have the two-headed monster with Swift and Monangai. And guys, I don't know if you agree with me, but I've seen a different DeAndre Swift this year, especially after the bye. I mean, that 4th and 2 against the Giants this past week, where he lowered his shoulder, he was dead to rights. He was short. He lowered his shoulder. He ran over a defender and then took on 2 more defenders. That's different DeAndre Swift than we saw last year, right? So I think this is something that, whether it's Ben Johnson, whether it's Eric Bieniemy, whether it's the Kyle Monangai effect that, he's kind of on his barking at his tail there. But they have a two-headed monster. Utilize them, right? And then we just talked about your tackles. They're best suited to in the run game, in terms of run blocking. Let's go there. Let's lean on that. Let's get the Vikings off kilter there, defensively, and then eventually take your shots with Burden or with DJ or with Roman Dunze. That's where I want to see the Bears kind of rely on, is build that rushing attack and play action stuff. And I want to see Caleb under center. I'm tired of the shotgun runs. Let's get Caleb under center, I formation, whatever you want to do. Caleb under center, run the ball down the throats of Minnesota, and then I'll hit him with a play action, and then we can take advantage of them.
Absolutely. And when you look at Minnesota's passing defense as well, things are a bit more difficult. The Vikings are allowing 191.7 yards per game, which ranks 9th in the NFL. Minnesota also has the 13th best pass rush, totaling 24 sacks in 9 games. But they could also be without Jonathan Greenard, who suffered a shoulder injury last week. So, Brendan, I want to ask you this. If you are Ben Johnson heading into this game, how would you approach things on offense?
Can I just say exactly what Danny said? I mean, my goodness, just keep pounding the rock. This is, I don't want to just be a copycat, but this has been a different running team ever since the bye. And I think that goes back to what I said earlier about offensive line cohesion as well. I mean, you think about early in the season, you have really now 4 starters that have not played together in terms of Tooney, Dahlman, Jackson, and Theo Benedict. The only consistent there was Darnell Wright. And so that takes time to gel, even though, individually those guys are good. You don't just immediately get plopped on a football field and say, okay, let's, you guys are going to be great now. It takes time to build, and it takes time to figure out who does what well and build that chemistry. You've seen that now. Jonah Jackson, we haven't talked about him yet. He looked really, really good on Sunday. And it seems like he is just so much better than what he was. Obviously going back to last year with the Rams, but even the first few weeks with the Bears, he's kind of found his footing. Drew Dahlman, great run blocker in terms of center. So utilize that. And like Danny said, in terms of DeAndre Swift, he absolutely is a different player than what we saw last year. I tweeted the same thing on that 4th down run. DeAndre Swift from last year does not get that first down. He goes down on first contact for whatever reason. So there's just a different mentality with this entire run offense. They found a formula, and they're doing the split carries with the hot hand with Monangai or Swift. And I mean, like, we know that Johnson loves to use the play action with Caleb Williams, and it's been working more. I'd say it's been working better and better every single week because defenses now actually are buying into the Bears run, and they're cheating up a lot more than they would have previously. So I'm establishing the run. I'm sticking with the run even when it doesn't work. And then, just taking those chances once they do become available with play action, once you get the guys to cheat up. I think that's definitely the formula now and going forward with the upcoming opponents as well.
And Brendan, I don't know if you agree or see the same way, but I think they're better when you run power concepts in terms of the blocking scheme. I like the duo. I like pulling the guard and leading with that I formation with a lead blocker, whether it's the tight end or actual somebody else in front of the running back. I like the power concepts. And I know he runs zone inside. He runs a lot of outside stuff as well. But I like when they go power, and I think that's where they've been most effective using those concepts.
Which is crazy too, because you look at somebody like DeAndre Swift, everybody was saying, and I said it too, like he's not an inside runner. You have to use that outside zone concept with him. And that's not the case now. Like, you can't actually feel comfortable with the entire group, getting those inside lanes and running that power scheme that you mentioned. So it's definitely been a shift there.
Yeah, and before we get to game picks for Sunday's game, we have a couple questions in the chat that I wanted to get to. Let's start with Cliff. Oh, wait, we're going to start with Lutz. Oh, okay, we're going with Cliff. Here we go. So do you guys think that DJ Moore should take a week off to heal? What do you think, Danny?
It depends on how bad he is. I mean, obviously this past week, you could tell he was scuffling there with the shoulder. It looked like it was a shoulder injury. He had no targets, no catches. If he's healthy to go, obviously, he's one of the leaders on the team. You got to put him out there. But yeah, I mean, if he's not healthy, if he's like 50% or 60%, whatever, let him sit for a week. And I would love to see more of Luther Burden. I love that kid, and I think he's got star potential written all over him.
And then we also have, Brendan, what do you think? Do you think that do you want to see more of the Bears' young receivers, especially Luther Burden, who Ben Johnson did seem to indicate could be seeing some more targets moving forward here?
Yeah, Luther Burden played 33 snaps on Sunday. That was 14 higher than his previous high of 19. So clearly he is getting more acclimated into the offense. And this is a week after missing due to a concussion too. So I think that's pretty notable. Olamide Zaccheaus did not have a good game at all. So look, if DJ Moore does sit, I think Luther Burden, no matter what, is going to get more targets and opportunities. But look, I understand the question. I don't like the way it's framed. Like, should he take a week off? I mean, really, it is the training staff to, look at him and say, you're not good enough to play. We're going to give you a week off, because DJ Moore, for as much guff that he's gotten over the last few years, like he's so tough. He's always going back out there, even when he gets banged up. You don't even know how hurt he is. I wouldn't be surprised if he has 2 DNPs this week before he tries to go. But I think Luther Burden has definitely earned more opportunities. And Ben Johnson is a guy you love to see it. Like, he's a coach who will see certain guys getting, making the most of their limited opportunities, and he's going to give them more snaps and opportunities going forward. He's not just all talk like we've seen with other coaches in this town.
Absolutely. And I believe we still have one more question from Lutz. It says, my scoring system has overall Bears team playing at around 50 to 55% of capability in Ben Johnson's program. Danny, where do you stand at that? Do you think that they're only around only halfway capable of where they could be playing?
In terms of, I was trying to extend more of the context of the question. So he thinks that they're only playing at half of what they, eventually potential. Okay, well, yeah, because this system is something that they're still learning. They're still, it's not fully implemented. I think next year you'll see a lot more players comfortable in the system. You see a lot more of Ben Johnson being comfortable in the system. I think every week we see a new wrinkle here and there. Obviously, it's Cincinnati game where he pulled out 4 or 5 trick plays. So I definitely think next year we will see this core of players on offense get much more better or productive, much more comfortable, I should say, in this overall scheme. So yeah, we're just scratching the surface in terms of what Ben Johnson can do with the talent he has here. And that one thing that, he's not. I keep hearing things where like, oh, well, Matt Nagy's first year, the Bears weren't great with Matt Nagy's first year on offense. I mean, the first 8 games were good, and that second half of the season they caught on to him. And remember, it's a defense that helped Matt Nagy win that division. It wasn't Matt Nagy and his play calling. I think with Ben Johnson, what it does is he is so creative. He knows where he needs to be in terms of his base and in terms of how to build an offense. And I think he's just bringing these guys all together right now. And we're just seeing a little bit of what he could do. I think eventually later on this year, he said all throughout the whole season, in December, they'll be playing their best football. I truly believe that. And I think by next year, it definitely will be playing a better football offensively, at least. So yeah, I'm so excited to see what the future holds, especially for, like I said, some of those key, skill position players along with Caleb. All those guys are going to go together in the system. Definitely very excited in terms of what the future holds for the Bears.
And Brendan, do you feel like this team is just scratching the surface here through the first 9 games?
I think so. And I like the comparison to Matt Nagy's 2018 team because you did see a lot of smoke and mirrors early on. Their offense was humming. They were able to, establish a system and a scheme that worked for a short period of time. But this was about the time where things started to sort of maybe not unravel, but you saw them hit the ceiling in terms of what they could do. And they really needed to rely on Vic Fangio's defense more than anything to keep getting wins. Maybe that also coincided with Trubisky's shoulder injury. Who knows? But you're not seeing that same deal with Ben Johnson's offense. I mean, they had 576 yards of offense just 2 weeks ago. They're moving the ball so much better. Even if they didn't get points out of it all the time last week with some of those failed 4th down conversions, they're still showing that things are still coming together, and they're actually utilizing the quarterback to get that done instead of maybe trying to mask him like we saw with Nagy and other instances. So Ben Johnson talked about hey, we are going to be playing our best brand in December. I remember after the 0-2 start, everybody's freaking out that the sky is falling. And I was very adamant that, at some point the Bears are going to find a good stretch of football and they're going to be playing complementary football. The question is, how long does that last and when does it hit? Well, it's been happening and it's been lasting quite a bit, quite a bit longer than maybe even some people thought. So I'm very excited to see how he builds on this, continuing to keep that same, everybody kind of pulling on the same side of the rope. I think that's so important when it comes to a locker room culture. You have guys that actually believe in what the coach is selling. And now you have guys that believe that they can win any single game. And that is just so important. I mean, Kevin Byard, I know, just talked about it this week on his Intercepted podcast with Roma Dunze. They did not have that mentality before. And so part of it is scheme. Part of it is just what Ben Johnson actually puts together with a game plan. But the other part of it is the mentality and the belief. And I think that's not going away anytime soon with this locker room.
Yeah, that whole comparison with Nagy, it drives me insane when I get those comparisons. I'm like, it's not the same. It's night and day difference. I mean, even some of the plays I showed today, there are still, when I watch these games, even after the Cincinnati game, there are still plays that were left on the field. There are still plays where if they executed it right, whether the offense, receiver, quarterback, whatever, if they executed it right, they would have another big play, another big chunk play. So the plays, the opportunities are there. It's just the execution's off or the timing's off, or something like that. So once that it's all hitting on all cylinders, that's where we're going to see explosive play after explosive play, especially if these young guys continue to develop and get better. I'm talking about Loveland, Burden, obviously Roma Dunze, and whoever else they add to the mix next year.
And last thing, I know we're going to move on real quickly. So many times we see offensive coordinators and offensive minds have that one and done year. Bobby Slowick, Zach Robinson. Ben Johnson actually is one of the few guys who has built on his successes year over year. That is extremely hard. And we didn't, Matt Nagy's a perfect example. Mark Trestman, another example. So there is proof from his previous experiences that this is only the starting point and things are going to only get better. Maybe not linearly, but overall.
Yeah, agreed. And there's a lot at stake heading into Sunday's game against the Vikings. So we're going to see, like you mentioned, Brendan, this is going to be the first time where Ben Johnson and this coaching staff are going to play a team for a second time. So we're going to learn a lot about them. And, they're looking to get revenge for that week 1 loss. But I think they're also looking, obviously, to maintain their stance, tied for first place atop the NFC North with the Lions. So before we close out the show, I want to go around the horn real quick with some predictions. So I think, Brendan, I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you have? Let's start with you. What's your prediction for Sunday?
Well, guys, speaking of 2018, because why not? That was the last good time the Bears were good. That Bears team went into Week 11 6-3. They were facing a Vikings team that was still very much alive in the NFC North, and it was a statement game. And they ended up winning that to go to 7-3 and really cement their status as a playoff caliber team. I am predicting these 2025 Bears do the same, although maybe not with the same sort of game plan of just relying solely on the defense. I think this Bears offense, with Ben Johnson at the helm, finds a way to learn from his mistakes. They didn't run the ball well in week 1. I think, as we talked about, that is going to be a key component going forward. And these Bears pull out a win 27-23. It is going to be close. It's going to be a dogfight. It's probably not going to be totally pretty, but he is going to learn from his mistakes. And we've seen it in the past with him having multiple matchups with different coordinators. He always seems to get the last laugh. So, I'm predicting a road win. Bears get to 7-3, and we can actually realistically start talking playoffs.
Wow, playoffs. Danny, what about you? Who you picking up today?
I'm feeling what Brandon's putting out there, and I'm kind of liking it. I'm kind of liking what he's saying out there. So, but the thing, Ben Johnson, this is my opinion. Ben Johnson, that first game still bugs him. I think he felt like they let one go. And I feel like he's going to have a couple of things up his sleeve for Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings. And I think they're going to come out there and they're going to put on a show. Unfortunately, the Bears defense probably won't be able to stop the Vikings either. That's what I'm afraid of. Again, they rely on turnovers. If they get 3 or 4 turnovers, I'm going to feel much better about it. But I think this will be another nail biter. I think the Bears do go to 7-3. But I think this is going to be more of a shootout. I think it's a 37-34 Bears final. Either Cairo kicks a winning field goal or the Vikings miss a game-tying field goal at the end. But I think Bears come out of there with the win, and I think Ben Johnson goes in there to make a statement to Brian Flores and the rest of the division, say, hey, and just to, I hate saying these so early in the season, or actually halfway through the season, this is a must-win game for the Bears, guys. They're 0-2 in the division. They go 0-3 in division. That really kills their chances of even competing for that division, if they even have thoughts of that. So this is, to me, is a must-win. There, you have a 2-game lead over Minnesota. You win this game, you have a 3-game. You pretty much kill Minnesota's hopes for the season in terms of the playoffs, I think. And I think you make a statement there as well. So Bears 37, Vikings 34 is my prediction.
Yeah, I have to agree with you both. I have them winning this game, which I'm kind of afraid. It's kind of like when everyone picks the team to win and then they end up losing. But I think when you look back at the first week and losing the way that they did, blowing that fourth quarter lead, I feel like this game is going to be the opposite. Like you said, Danny, I do think that Ben has had this game circled in the back of his mind, just like he has that last game against the Lions also. So I do think that this is a game that we're going to see some more of those trick plays, and you're going to need the offense to step up here. And I think that you do ride that running back duo of DeAndre Swift and Kyle Benengai. And Caleb, I think he's going to come through again in the fourth quarter, pull out some late game heroics, and who knows, maybe it's going to be Caleb Williams throwing 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter this time. But I think I have them right now winning 28-27. A nail biter. We can all agree. I think that's something we can all agree on.
I don't think my heart can take any more of these games.
I know, right? When the Bears players start saying that they're losing years off their lives, I mean, like, same. But that is going to do it for another episode of Buffone 55. So thank you, Brendan, so much for joining us on this show. And for Danny Shimon, Brendan Chagru, Aldo Gandia, and our fearless leader, John Buffone, my name is Alyssa Barbieri, and we will see you next time.